You're in the middle of your drafts already, or you've already drafted, and you're scouring the waiver wire. Well, welcome to the CANAM Fantasy Football Podcast. You're here with Ryan, Tyler, Devin, and Aetan. And today we're talking about sleepers for 2020. But first, we got some crazy news. The Jacksonville Jaguars have waived running back Leonard Fournette. So, a 3-year run with the Jaguars, 2,631 yards, 17 touchdowns, and the Jaguars didn't pick up his 5th-year option and waived him. Pretty crazy stuff. And it kind of underscores just what a disaster Jacksonville has been for players. I'm not sure what to say about this. Why don't we go to Aetan? When you're looking at the waiver wire rules, who's even in a position to pick him up?
So, basically what happened here is he got waived. Well, they announced he was going to be waived today. So they had a deadline of 4 p.m. Eastern, I believe, was the deadline, and they still had his rights until that moment. So they could have traded him to any team for, say, a 7th or a conditional 6th or something like that. But no other teams claimed him. So now he is officially on the waiver wire, which you'll have to pardon my lack of knowledge here. I'm not sure if it's a 24-hour period, but the waiver wire is set based on 2019 standings as of right now. After week 3, It changes to the current 2020 standings. But as of right now, we're still sticking with the Bengals being the first waiver priority, and then obviously going all the way up to the Kansas City Chiefs being the last waiver wire. The move itself, I just want to touch on it. I know you were just asking me about the waiver, but the move itself is you look at the numbers and it is kind of puzzling. I mean, he put up over 1,600 all-purpose yards. He was by far the Jaguars' best player last year. But the attitude problems, the fights with the coaches, the fights with other players, the walking off field, just general attitude, they just said enough is enough and just cut the guy basically. And it kind of got us all a little bit off guard because you kind of figured a talent of this sort would at least be able to warrant at least a 7th or something in return. But now the Jags draft a player 4th overall, and then 4 years later get absolutely nothing for him. It's kind of a puzzling move, but here they are in full rebuild mode yet again, and we'll see what the future holds for the Jags.
It's pretty crazy too. Most of their first rounders over the last 9 years, they don't have a single one of them, except for the one that they got in 2019. It's nuts. It's so crazy to me. Tyler, I know that there's talk about culture issues in Jacksonville and whatnot, but there has to be a team that would be a good fit for someone that could take on a player like a Leonard Fournette that maybe has personality or locker room issues and would be able to do something with a player like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the first team that comes to mind that's kind of known for taking on players that supposedly have issues is the New England Patriots. I mean, Bill Belichick controls that locker room. People get in line for that franchise. You could go back as far as like Ocho Cinco going there and all these other guys. So like, I think that could be an option. I mean, obviously they're not too. Devin might be the better one to talk about this, but obviously they're not too happy with Sony Michel's production lately. They picked up Lamar Miller a little bit ago. I don't think they're too excited about that. So Fournette could put him over the top. Another spot could be one of those places that have had injuries during training camps. So you see guys like I don't think it's too serious, but Miles Sanders had a tweak. Mixon's having some migraines. Montgomery had the injury. So these are places where we don't know for sure who the starter is going to be. So maybe they take a gamble. Maybe they throw in Fournette for a month, see how he does. If he doesn't work out, their guy who is having some issues is back by then, and then cut their losses and cut him. You never know. So yeah, there's lots of options. You never know what's going to happen. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because I do think he will land on a squad before week 1, so that'll shake the fantasy world pretty heavily.
That's true, and from what a little bird has told me, the Bears might be a destination for Fournette. Now, Dev, I just drafted Leonard Fournette in one of my other leagues. Is he going to have any value this year? Like, I'm panicked. What the hell am I supposed to do, Devin?
Don't panic yet.
Okay.
Just hang tight there and see where he lands, see where he ends up. He is a talent. I think what might end up happening is because of that salary of 4.1 million, maybe everyone will just pass on him and then he'll just re-sign with another team so they won't have to deal with that 4.1 million cap hit. And like as Tyler alluded to, a team like the New England Patriots could certainly do that. We'll pay you $1 million 1 year, take it or leave it, and they'll be like, okay.
That's fair. Aetan, you won the Raquel Armstead sweepstakes in a couple of leagues that I'm with you. What are you thinking about his chances for the year?
I don't actually know, to be honest. I haven't seen much tape on this guy. I haven't seen much clips on him. There hasn't been a lot of buzz around him at all, being down in Jacksonville, and I'm not even sure if he's the appropriate handcuff. I think they're gonna do a battle with him, and you'll have to excuse me. I don't remember the other guy's name. It's like Uchasho or something like that. So they're going to do another battle with those two guys to be the top one, and then Chris Thompson will obviously have a role in the pass catching. But I'm excited to at least take the lottery pick on him, and we'll see if he turns into an actual legit starter.
Divine Ozigbo.
I wasn't even close. I apologize.
I'm really sorry if I butchered your name, Divine. Woo! Well, why don't we go ahead and talk about sleepers? Especially after this news, I feel like Gardner Minshew has always been like one of my favorite QB sleepers for this year. That only gets bumped up because, let's face it, that defense, I'm not going to say that they're trash. They're professional athletes. But they're certainly rebuilding. They're in the middle of a huge rebuild. So what happens when you have a bad defense and a lack of running offense? You air it out. And if you look at the stats, Gardner Minshew was very comparable to Kyler Murray last year. He had a better QBR. As far as touchdowns per game, 1.5 touchdowns for Gardner Minshew compared to 1.25 touchdowns for Kyler Murray. Less interceptions. More yards, barely. I think Gardner Minshew is actually a really nice sleeper quarterback. Has a decent rushing floor. Definitely a good choice if you're going to be in a deeper league. If you're in a 2 QB league. Even if you're in a dynasty league with deep benches. Pick up Minshew. That's my pick for sleeper this year. That's why he's in the image. It's a ridiculous image.
Can I just make one point as well?
Please do.
He has literally zero competition. Mike Glennon's the backup there, so they're gonna just ride Minshew until he gets hurt. So they're gonna give him the whole year. They don't care how bad he is over the first couple of weeks. He'll get a long leash. So I do like this sleeper pick. I like it a lot.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, no competition, like you said. And if they lose a lot of games, well, they're in the Lawrence. They're gonna languish for Lawrence. I'm coining it right now. They're going to languish for Lawrence. Let's move on to the wide receiver position. Jamison Crowder for the New York Jets is Tyler's sleeper pick. Tyler, tell us why Jamison Crowder is going to help people win their leagues this year.
Right. Well, I have one word for you guys. It is targets, and I'll say it 3 times: targets, targets, targets. So I'm going to rattle off a few names, and these guys are all guys who had less targets than Crowder did last year. So here we go. We got Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, Darren Weller, Kenny Galladay, Michael Gallup, George Kittle, just to name a few. These are all guys who you would expect to get the ball all the time. uh, PPR leagues, you expect these guys to put up huge numbers. So why is Jamison Crowder not even mentioned among these names? I mean, there's a couple like Chris Godwin. Okay, he got injured. Okay, but yeah. So Crowder was actually 21st overall in targets last year. That includes all positions, so wide receivers, running backs, tight ends. So right away, you compare that to where he's going in drafts right now. His current ADP is 148. So are you kidding me? He's going in a 10-man league. That's the 15th round. In a 12-man league, he's not even being drafted pretty much. Or sorry, that's the other way around. In a 12-man league, okay, he's a little bit higher up, but still way low, way below what your starting positional players are being drafted in. So last year's stats: 78 receptions out of those 120 targets. So pretty decent. 833 yards is not amazing. It's a little pedestrian and 6 touchdowns. That's probably explaining why he's so low. But this year, I expect those particular stats to improve a lot. You're going to have Sam Darnold healthy, or we expect to be healthy this year. He's in the bubble. He's not going to be kissing anyone, so we don't have to worry about mono this year. So I think him and Crowder are going to have chemistry, and Crowder has no competition at the wide receiver position in New York. They basically had this kid, Denzel Mims, was supposed to be the wide receiver too. He's been injured in camp. They have Brashard Perryman came in there, but he's not expected to challenge for targets to Crowder. Crowder is the clear-cut guy. The only other name you could probably talk about is Chris Herndon, the fourth, who's a tight end. He's going to get those close looks, but Crowder is going to get these unbelievable targets, and he's going to be down the field, up and down the field all day. So I'm excited. I think easily 1,000 yards for this guy. I think his catches, he could be up in the 90 range if things go well for him. And where you're drafting him, guys, like pick this guy up in the 10th round. I see no reason why this guy shouldn't be your wide receiver 3 or even coming off your bench as a wide receiver. Because by the end of the year, this guy could be your wide receiver 2. And at this point in the draft, when where you're drafting him right now, that's nothing but value, and that's the kind of thing you want in a sleeper.
Yeah, that's a good take. Definitely for people who are punting wide receiver, people who are loading up on running back. That's a good flex option. You know, you get him as your wide receiver 4 or 5. Why not? It's beautiful. The 10th round is a good place to get him to, because for those who are actually hip to Jamison Crowder, they're probably targeting him around the 11th or 12th in a 12-team league. So, yeah, 10th round, I'm digging that. Why don't we move on from the wide receiver position to the running back position? Devin, you have Chase Edmonds as your sleeper. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's another running back in Arizona by the name of Kenyon Drake. Why are you so high on Chase Edmonds this year?
Well, let's just get this is sleepers, so it's not that necessarily that I'm so high on him. It's just, for one, there's a couple reasons. For me personally, I've made it very evident that I'm not really that high on Kenyon Drake. I will not be drafting him in any league. I just don't believe that we've seen enough. And if fantasy wise, he's the type of guy that shows it a little bit and then doesn't. There's not really much consistency over his career. But I'm going to just bring up a couple things about Chase Edmonds here that are coming out of camp. But if we take a look at last year, he was averaging 5.1 yards per carry, Chase Edmonds. He ended up with 4 touchdowns, 60 attempts, and 303 yards. Now, one of those games was week 7, where he ended up taking over for David Johnson when Johnson was out, and he had 126 yards and blew up against the Giants and had a huge game there. and then he was going to be the starter there. Then what happened is he got injured with his hamstring, and then kind of just tapered off the rest of the way. They love him there. You know, in the Cliff Kingsbury has come out and said, this is a direct quote from him. We felt that that confident in what Chase brings. When he had his opportunities, he shined, and he continues to shine. He can catch it, run it, block it, play special teams. He's really bright football wise, and he's everything you want. I think that he has potential to not only be an insurance plan for Drake, but also take quite a few, get some opportunity. They love him there. Another quote from the coach there: feels like Chase Edmonds is a starting running back in this league. They love him there, and I just think that he's not even on anyone's radar, I don't think. So why not take a flyer on him? Yeah, that's how I feel about that.
That's beautiful. I actually love that. I'm a big Chase Edmonds fan, if you can consider me a fan of, a backup running back. But absolutely, Chase Edmonds in that offense can do a lot. So, yeah, there's Kenyon Drake there, but there's a chance that Chase Edmonds has standalone value this year. And hey, and like you said, we are talking sleepers. Let's move over to the tight end position. Now, we all know in CanAm land that Aetan is a Cowboys fan. But I love his sleeper. Just happens to be a Cowboy. It's Blake Jarwin. Tell us why he is your tight end sleeper for this year.
It's simple. He's got chemistry with Dak. They're getting along together quite well. He had some pretty explosive games last year where he looked like he could be the guy, but it was very difficult for him to weed out Jason Witten. Well, now Jason Witten's gone, and Cowboys offense have always been built around a strong tight end presence. Dak has only known a strong tight end presence. And with Dak and Cobb both leaving the teams, I've said this quite a bit, that's 166 targets that are now up for grabs for players like CeeDee Lamb, Jarwin, and Gallup and Cooper. So I think that this guy could easily see, 80 to 90 targets. And if he's seeing 80 to 90 targets, I think he has an opportunity to get 6 to 7 touchdowns. And if he gets 6 to 7 touchdowns, all of a sudden he's a TE1. And he's being drafted as the tight end 18, and he's sitting at 141 on the ECR. I think he's a steal, and I think he's worth grabbing in your leagues. He's also kind of a big guy. He's 6'5", 265 pounds, and he's given linebackers a lot of problems when they drop into coverage because he's able to outrun them and he's able to outmuscle them for the ball. So I'm very high on Blake Jarwin, and I think he has a great opportunity to finish in the top 10 for tight ends this year. And I've definitely got a lot of shares of him throughout the map, and maybe it's my Cowboy fanism, but I'd like to just think of it as a more advanced scouting report over everyone else. So I'll say that term instead of Homer.
Join us in our drive for 500 subscribers, and you could win a signed Amari Cooper jersey. Are you new to the channel? Give us a like, subscribe, and click the notify bell. It helps a ton for a new channel like ours. We're going to have a random draw for a signed Amari Cooper jersey shipped anywhere in North America. So go ahead, click subscribe, and thank you for watching the CanAm Fantasy Football Podcast.